Hey folks, good evening to you. Welcome wherever you're listening from all over the world. My name is Kalu Aja. Welcome to another money space with me. Here we're talking money, the economy, and of course finance, personal finance. And this week we're talking around the monetary policy decision of the Central Bank of Nigeria. The NPC, that's what we're going to call it, met for the 297th time last week, and their decision was, should we say, surprising. They raised the monetary policy rate by 50 basis points from 26.75 to 27.25. So, in English, what they did was they simply raised the interest rates in Nigeria. How it works is this: when the central bank raises rates, it's telling banks that if you want to borrow from the central bank by maybe selling your securities or using a discount window, we're going to lend to you at, in this case, 27.25. What that means is that no bank is going to lend to you lower than 27.25 in Nigeria. That becomes now the base level lending rate because no bank will lend to you lower than what it's going to get from the lender of last resort. And the lender of last resort in this case is the Central Bank of Nigeria. So they've raised the interest rate in Nigeria. Why have they done so? Usually in should we say finance, when you have inflation which we define simplistically as too much money chasing too few goods. When you have that too much money part of the equation, you raise interest rates so that you allow investors, number one, to fix money in the banks and microfinance banks so that there's an incentive for them to take money away from this circulation and put in banks, but also the government can come in, i.e., the central bank can come in and buy lots of naira from the market by simply offering these high rates. So look at it this way: the risk-free rate in Nigeria, the risk-free rate means the rate that when you put money aside with the federal government, which is the most secure lender in Nigeria, is now in the double digits. If you was going to start a business in Nigeria, it's better, in quote, if you simply took your money and you give it to the government. The government will give you nearly 25%, which is the rate they are going to pay you on a T-bill for 1 year, than if you started a business. You see the problem? The government is trying to solve inflation, will increase the rates to take away excess capital from the market. That excess capital is what's driving the monetary expansion and inflation, according to the Central Bank of Nigeria. So by taking away that excess capital, it reduces the volume of cash in circulation, which should affect inflation. That's the whole idea. That's where they're driving to with increasing the monetary policy rate to 27. Again, there's a nugget in the speech by the Central Bank of Nigeria. They said they want to maintain a real rate of return for the foreign investors. Inflation in Nigeria is about 33%. What this means is that if you want to invest in Nigeria to make a real rate of return, the central bank has got to raise its own rates to try to stay abreast with inflation in Nigeria. So that if you bring in $1 million into Nigeria, you can still buy paper, a Nigerian treasury bill at maybe 30% or 29% and still make at least some modicum of return vis-a-vis inflation. Hence, by giving real rates of return, i.e., moving the monetary policy rate upwards, they are able to offer investors a return that at least matches inflation. Remember, 27% is not going to match Nigeria's inflation of 33%, but at least it closes the gap. If you are making 27%, that's good, right? In an economy that is paying 33%, that's good. I.e., inflation 33%. It's still better than if you are buying, say, stocks, or if you are, say, doing a property that's going to pay you rental income of 10%, 6%. So this is the risk-free rate. The risk-free rate is very, very high, designed to attract foreign portfolio investment into Nigeria. That's why you see the monetary policy rate this high. But what's the other side? What's the bad side of this equation? When you make the MPR so high, you kill off local manufacturing, local business in Nigeria. Because Who is going to borrow at 27% to do business in Nigeria? What would you borrow at? Like, what are you going to invest this money you're going to borrow at 27% to do business in Nigeria at? Like, would you start a farm? What's the turnover of a farm? Do you have power supply? I mean, capital alone is charging you 27. That's going to be a lot, for any entrepreneur in Nigeria to overcome. So, economy doesn't give you solutions; it gives you alternatives. You can fight inflation by raising interest rates, and then you sacrifice growth. Or you can support growth by making interest rates very, very low, letting cash be everywhere, and then inflation will then run riot. In this case, the Central Bank of Nigeria has chosen to fight inflation. Hence, they are raising the rates, even though we have seen 2 consecutive months of inflation coming down. The central bank is saying, yes, we see the inflation rates coming down, but the rate of increase in the other core inflation items apart from food is still going up. So it looks like what's happening, and I agree with CBN, is that food prices are coming down because of the harvest of food. So you have some food prices coming down, and because food is about 51% of the inflation number, the CPI, it looks as if inflation is coming down in Nigeria. But when you look at energy, it's still going up in Nigeria. So CBN is saying they want to be lulled into reducing MPR rates when we still see energy prices going up. Hence, we are going to retain MPC, not just retain the MPR at a higher rate, but we're going to even increase it to 27.25. So, in effect, they're not satisfied with the numbers they are seeing from inflation, number one. Number two, they want to give the real investors a real rate of return, number two. And number three, the CBN said something very, very subtly in their statement. They said, we noticed, and I'm paraphrasing, this is not exact what it is, we noticed that when there's FAC in the system, exchange rates move. In effect, they are saying that the folks that are getting FAC, the governors, the local government administrators, are taking that Naira disbursement and are buying dollars. And that's why you see the dollar rate going up to 11700, 1690 once FAC is released. Which means that the demand for dollars in Nigeria is really, really artificial. There's an artificial element on that demand for dollar. The dollar rate should not be what it is today. The 1718 we're seeing is not the real rate. There's a lot of buying of dollars with quote-unquote cheap funds. These are funds that are gotten from the government side, So you get free money from FAC. You don't care what the exchange rate is. An importer that has to balance his balance sheet, his profit and loss, is not going to buy dollars at any rate. But the government guy that is just getting Naira from the FAC purse doesn't care about the exchange rate he buys dollar in. So that's why you see the dollar going up and up and up, even though Nigeria is posting a net export position number. So Nigeria is exporting more than we are importing. Yet the currency keeps on falling. It can only be that the demand for dollar keeps on going high, even though Nigeria is exporting, which doesn't make any sense. So that's the lay of the ground. There's a lot to talk more about. I'll get back into it. I've got Olumide here. Olumide, did you hear the MPC committee meeting? What fell out to you last week? The guy said a lot. We've not even talked about his own comments about saying that the CBN can't do everything. He's sort of sounding exasperated that CBN can't do everything. We need the fiscal guys, the executive guys to come in and help us out here. What's your take, Olumide?
Good evening, Carlo. Very nice disposition. You've already summarized most of the things I wanted to say, so there's no need beating around the bush. Well, it confirmed most of our bias, and I remember early this year when you reached out and you were asking that what are the major causes of the Naira volatility, and I remember you hampered more on TP oil production and the fact that crude oil was more of the derivative to the Naira. And I totally agreed, but I told you that there was an elephant in the room. And I shared a report because I did a study between September to this early this year, and I found out that anytime the FAC had their funds, anytime FAC allocation was being shared to the federation, I saw that the naira depreciated. And you know what me, Carlo, was that this wasn't a rocket science study. You just needed to look at the market reaction anytime the fact was being shared. The naira loses between 20 to 15 naira. And what pained me most was that at the time I noticed the intensity, the naira was trading around 1,000. And I remember I told the CBN that, see, you really need to talk to the fiscal guys that it might become very expensive. So, Kalu, all what they are saying to me is sought after injury. I'm highly disappointed because, Cardoso is a kind of person that knows how to watch his temperament, but he should have said these things earlier. It's really very sad because, Kalu, right now, if you look at what is happening in the FX market, the Naira has lost the 1,600 support level at the black market. And what technically means is that it's going to take more than 50 basis points, and because we are moving to the festive period, December, when a lot of traveling, expenses, reallocation, and with the fact that the trust in the Naira is falling, it seems that a 2,000 is likely. So it's gone beyond what a statement. This is something that has been said on this space, Carlo. You've done this space on Naira reaction. Everything that was on that statement, if they played your recordings, they will get 80% of it. So the fact that the CBN has thousands of people in their research team and they could just figure out is a disappointment. However, I think the advantage is still in Nigeria's favor. But the problem, Carlo, is that the fiscal indiscipline is the issue here. With Dangote refinery coming to play, but the fact that we're getting much more real, because right now inflation really seems to be moderating and the MPC rate, so the differential, despite the fact it's negative, is reducing. With Ghana also reducing interest rates, so there's still incentive. But the problem is that FPIs now are not even trusting the government. If you look at data from the fixed income space, profit taking was at its highest level this year. So despite the fact that the CBN has increased interest by 50 basis points, we've not seen that really trickling. The only positivity we've seen is that stocks are coming, investors are coming to stocks. You look at FCMB right now, it's almost going to 9 naira. Those that even invested have made at least 20%. FCM Fidelity is about 50% up. First Bank is almost about 60%, and it's not even done its right issue. So it's a positive side in the stock market. The fixed income side is looking parabolic. The fiscal side is a mess up. I don't understand what the president is doing with his team. He has shown that the Naira cannot really be trusted with this administration. It's very sad. I totally had trust that Wale Edo and his team will really do things for Kalu. It seems that it's really a dire situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's only you bring up a lot of points there. Energy, you brought in the FPI inflow. We see forex reserves going up, and that seems to be the inflow, right? Is that FPI inflow, or where's that coming from? The foreign reserves going up.
The foreign reserves, basically, it's just, we got in loans, we got in credit. So for me, it's not. If saying it is the FPI, it will sound very primitive. Although remittance has improved, to be honest with you, at some point they said their monthly remittance hit 2.5 billion a month. But for a country of 200 million people, and you understanding the poor transparency in our FX reserve, because this is gross, we don't really know the net value of that of the true state of our FX. But the reality is that we are not in a comfortable situation. So despite the fact that we are seeing uptick moving to 40 billion, it mainly can meet 8 to 9 million 9 months of our import obligation. So while Cardoso has improved the credibility of our FX market, the parabolic situation in our FX market, or the dramatic stance, has made it very difficult for importers. And why I'm more surprised is that, Carlo, with Dangote refinery coming to stream, the volatility has not reduced. So we have a political elite that still is not cutting their budget. We still have recklessness in the system. We still have unaccounted funds kicking around. Too many naira chasing few dollars. Productivity very low. Purchasing power very low. Unemployment rate very high. All the indices are moving forward, and we are coming to US election. Anybody that wins is net negative for naira, because I've looked at it both ways. If Trump wins, most likely digging more fossils, oil prices will get surprised. If Harris wins, she's going to go more into renewables. So definitely it's going to cap oil prices. So Nigeria is just caught in between races, and our policymakers are not making that adjustment. Because it's really a dire situation as we speak.
I mean, the biggest change for me in the CBN's take was them coming out to really blame. It was very, very nice blame, but a blame also saying members observed the correlation between FARC releases and liquidity levels in the banking system, as well as its impact on the exchange rate. Meaning, once they release FARC, money is stolen and money is used to buy dollars. It's right there in the CBN statement. And that should, for me, in any country, trigger the EFCC to start to now go after how FARC money goes from FARC to dollar purchases. Because we blamed Binance. We said Binance was the cause of the Naira falling. But the Naira has fallen more, and the CBN is now saying, the same CBN that blamed Binance, the Binance guys in court today, the Binance guys can use this statement as a defense. CBN is saying that there's a correlation between FARC releases and its impact on the exchange rate. So what should be done?
Yes, Carlos, the honest truth is that I just think it's not that I don't feel things can not be done, but things will not be done. All these Katia, all these Richard Mille, all these luxury cars, where did they come from? Nigeria doesn't produce any of these materials. You see these optics around the political elite. Definitely, it was bought in from imported. It was bought in from the black market currencies. So the truth of the matter is that there's increased inflow in the black market, and there's TP supply of FX in Nigeria. So at some point, you see the CBN cannot really interfere, because the truth of the matter is that what we realize is that when there is a kind of cap, because of the inconsistency of the CBN, the cap is broken. So as we speak, I think, just like you said, if these guys want these things to be done, I spoke with some investment bankers, and they told me three things: that we can take the China approach. Why are politicians running domiciliary accounts, Carlo? Why are politicians running domiciliary accounts, for heaven's sake? Why are politicians using foreign FX for campaigns? Then the rate of imported vehicles among the political elite it's a big dent on FX, because if you look at a country like Nigeria, that the revenue cannot really make in between $15 billion. I'm talking of federal government revenue.
Yeah.
And you look at the number of bulletproof cars, each state much less than the presidency spent about 9.2 billion. Yeah. 9.2 billion in 3 months. The president, you see, that's the problem I'm having. And I'm saying this clearly.
So the first lady is spending money, billions, on decorations. I just saw a report today, a guy published a report today that all the state governors spent $300 million on refreshments. All the state governors in Nigeria, dollars, not naira, dollars, 300 million or 600 million in dollars. I tweeted it.
How is not possible?
No,
we have a number problem.
He quoted the source. He quoted the source, dollars. So he converted naira to dollars, but the dollar equivalent is about 300 or 600 million dollars. Just think about that for a second. This is a nation where people still don't have food. Crate of egg is 6,000 naira, but the governors, all the governors, are spending a combined amount of. I think someone will share that. I'm going to look for it here. $300 or $600 million. The guy quoted the source. You have.
No, it's possible.
No. He quoted. He attached the source there. I think I retweeted it.
I thought you were mentioning each state. That's why I felt.
No. All the governors combined. Okay. So you look at that, and you look at the ASAP, the policy that was passed by the plan, the short-term plan to bridge the hunger, the issues that led to the protest in Nigeria. I read a report that the import of food has now been quote unquote abandoned because it's too bureaucratic, too many laws. We said this before. Import food. They took a year to agree that yes, they had to import food. Then to import the food, they put in criteria. It's like NASA launching a rocket to space. The criteria to import the food, you must have this, you must have this, you must have this. Now we are almost half of the days into the window to import the food. What's going to happen? The window would expire, no food will be imported. Inflation is still not going to go down. So, got back to Mr. Wale Edu. It seems that he's a theoretical Wall Street guy that doesn't want to get his fingers dirty to go into the mud and get things done. The Nigerian Customs reports to him. Nigerian Customs is raising export exchange rates when the market raises export rate. Why can't Mr. Wale Edu tell Nigerian Customs to use 20 naira to $1 and do it tomorrow? Is there any law stopping him?
Carlo, I think if you look at, to be honest with you, it's beyond Mr. Wale Edu. And that's why I feel like one of the things I really love about President Obasanjo was that the people he put in his economic team were people that have the charismatic sense of responsibility, and he gave them that support. So there were times that people wanted to attack Ngozi, Rufai Ribadu, and President Obasanjo at that time gave him the political support. We're not seeing that from President Wale Tinubu. The support is given to his core team. It's not showing. I understand all the things you're saying, but if you look at it, there's a gap. For example, you see sometimes you wonder why is the IFRS man making some statement, and people will say it's part of the committee. Oh, it's just like, for example, the budget. You have a woman affairs minister discussing the theme of a federal government budget. So I think there are a lot of gaps that, and maybe it's still because it's 1 year. Then also, Wale Edu came from, he's an investment banker. He's someone that, from what I've seen, his personality is a process man. But he hasn't been able to stamp his feet, just like you rightly said. And it's a problem because the sector he covers is very sensitive. But one good thing I've seen about Wale Edu is because if you look at the implementation, there's one thing allocating funds and there's one thing implementing. If you look at the way he has implemented or funds he has approved, I think he has been very tight because a lot of people in government are complaining about his style of approval, which I think is some sense of accountability. The key issue I have, just like you said, the fact that a Nigerian Customs Service vetoed the president's executive order on zero food tariff is a slap on the Nigerian state, a slap on the president, a slap.
Exactly. And I want people to understand what we're saying, Lumide. When you if you import a bag of rice into Nigeria, you are bringing it into Nigeria, is a dollar price, right? You are bringing it to Nigeria. The customs will charge you a fee to bring the goods into Nigeria. What happens is this: because the Naira exchange rate has gone up and all that, the customs can apply a rate of, say, 1,400 or 1,500 or whatever. That price you pay to the customs is a cost to you. Hence, when you bring the rice into Nigeria, it either goes up based on the customs price you pay or is reduced based on the customs price you pay. That customs price has no correlation with the exchange rate in Nigeria. It's a fee customs is collecting. So it's not as if customs is saying, there's no swap arrangement customs has. There is no forex backing customs has. Customs has no forex exposure. Customs is just collecting a fee. Hence, if the customs says we're going to use $1 for 1 naira of import, what will happen is that the price of imported food in Nigeria will fall. So the price of rice, the price of chicken, the price of corned beef, the price of corn for maize, for chickens, poultry will fall. And that becomes a fall in inflation. That leads to also a fall in interest rates. You can do it tomorrow. Tomorrow, I know. What you would lose is that you lose customs revenues. But the customs revenues you will lose is what we are spending today on quote-unquote palliative. Why not take the palliative and give to customs and say, okay, customs, we're going to erase 10 billion from your revenues. Don't give us the revenues. Rather, use 1 naira to $1 and allow food imports to come in. Then everyone in Nigeria gets cheap food. So this trying times, we have cheap food.
Yeah, but you know why it's not going to happen? You're talking about illegal routes. I'll tell you one funny angle you forgot. Now, look at the rice imports in our neighboring countries. Benin imports more rice from India than China. You know the population of Benin. Cote d'Ivoire is a heavy importer of rice. Definitely, there is a rice cabal that benefits from this intricacy. So, you see, the problem, just like you rightly said, is that we don't have the political will. And the Nigerian Customs Service should not be a revenue-generating service. It should be a trade facilitator. Until we understand this as a country, we are going to keep playing the sound of music of inflation.
Okay.
And it's going to get worse because, just like you rightly said, if you look at I was reading the outlook for next year and coming, there's likely going to be something worse than the pandemic. And we don't have savings. We don't have food security. We are still playing hanky-panky when stability is relative around the world. We have not sorted this food problem. It's a very bad situation.
Remember, Olumide, again, go back to this food thing. While we're talking about food, I'm going to bring Zero Crude Money. And if you want to speak, guys, request to speak or DM. I'm going to bring Zero in very soon. Olumide, food is 51% of the consumer price index in Nigeria, which means that when food prices go up, inflation goes up. Food is 57% of what the average household spends in Nigeria. If you want to know a poor country, look at the proportion of the family's budget that goes towards food. A poor country, more of their budget goes towards food than a rich. How you know a rich and a poor country? If you look at the American family's budget, lower amounts go towards food. Look at the budget of a Nigerian, higher amounts go towards food. That's how you know a poor nation and a rich nation. Very, very simple rule. So when you attack food in Nigeria, you are giving everybody a salary increase, because when food prices go down, everyone's income goes up, number one. Number two, you are bringing down inflation. So the price of beans in Maiduguri affects the price you pay for your credit card in Lagos. We have to link these two things. If MPR goes up, your credit cards goes up. But MPR is not driven only by credit card in Lagos. It's driven by the cost of beans in Borno, in Kebbi. So food is what is driving how much you pay for your mortgage in Lagos, in Port Harcourt, and Abuja. We must link it, and a way to drive down the price of food is to allow food imports. They haven't done that. They've seen the problem, they've recognized the problem, they've drawn up a policy, but they've been slow to implement the policy. Even the food import policy they've implemented is too cumbersome, too dated, and the customs is standing in the way of it. And Mr. Wale Edu should have gone there and kicked ASS and get this stuff moving, so that his principal can enjoy lower interest rates. Zero Equilibrium, what's on your mind? Talk to me, please.
Yeah, good evening, Carly. Hope you can hear me.
I can hear you. Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, the topic is actually interesting, because it's almost like a double-edged sword. Like, the NPR and all. Like, okay, let's just say this. The interest rate hike I feel is too tight. If it were my opinion, I would have held rates where they were, but it may be necessary because of inflation is still yet to be tamed. We're in a disinflationary environment, but we're still just 2 months in, and exchange rate plays a big role in prices. And by raising rates, there's almost at the time when the Fed was cutting rates, and we are expecting that even the ECB will cut rates in October, that kind of raises the yield differential, because like you said earlier, our reserves right now is being supported mostly by
Yeah, Zero, your audio is really is shaky. If you can fix that audio, Zero, come back to me if you can fix that audio. Olumide, let's go to something else that the CBN was talking about. Zero, fix that audio. You're a bit low and it's shaky. If you can fix that, just come back to me on that. Yeah, Olumide, the CBN guy was also, Mr. Cardoso was also talking about, to paraphrase him, I can't do it alone. What do you make? What's your sense of? Do you think that there's discussion going behind the scenes on how the fiscal, how the monetary guys can actually work together? The president wants a $1 trillion economy in 10 years. We've now done 1 year. He has done 1 year. So we've not gotten. Our GDP has reduced. So which means we now have to divide that 1 trillion by 9 years, no longer 10 years. So, what's your sense? Is there? Do you think they are rowing on the same boat, or what's going on? Fiscal monetary.
And even if you rebase the economy and you look at the um, revenues and our consumption, a 1 trillion, it looks like a miracle or a fantasy, you know. And I think Cardoso is frustrated. You know, like I mentioned, if you look at his temperament in the past years, he's someone that rarely talks like this. For him to look at that statement, he shows three things: sign of frustration, sign that they seem to have exhausted all their monetary tools, though he said that they will continually, that's just trying to play safe. Because if you look at how the Naira has moved, the Naira under Cardoso had approached the 1,000 Naira dollar mark. And despite the fact that he wanted to promote independency and efficiency in the market, which he did at some point, the carelessness of the fiscal side had compounded in this issue. The only problem I have with Cardoso is that he said this things late. Well, maybe he felt like at some point the political side would wake up. But we also at Cardoso, we've always been complaining. I've always said that the fiscal side has made Cardoso look like an apprentice. You know, we gave him good credit for his intervention, clearing the FX backlogs, and promoting legitimacy in our market. But the issue is that what has changed to the average Nigerian, things have gone worse. And you know, exchange rate is many Nigerians take exchange rate personal. It's a verdict because we are import driven economy. We don't export. If we were exporting now, it would have been good news. You know, Carl, you've always said it many times that a weak Naira is good news for Nigerians. Nigerians don't understand these things because we don't really export. So for me, if I was Cardoso, I would definitely maybe have a one-on-one with the president. He has to reduce his team, Carlo. The economic team of this president has shown due to other direction. Apart from the interior minister, apart from maybe foreign affairs, because of the kind of things he has done, I cannot really speak the people that.
There are rumors of a cabinet reshuffle, and according to the rumor that I read in the Guardian, the interior minister is leaving. The guy for taxes, the tax guy, is coming as the Minister of State for Finance. So Mr.
I think that's a good move.
Yeah, Mr. Wale Edu. No, I'm just telling you what they reported. So the tax guy is going to come as a junior minister to Mr. Wale Edu. The interior guy is going. The Minister of Trade and Commerce is going. Who else I heard is going? So many other guys are going, but that's what I read in the Guardian, and it's there for everyone to read. So,
I know, honestly, what do you think we need? You know, you mentioned it.
A development economist. He needs someone that can come and understand the Nigerian situation, that understand the linkages in Nigeria, how food is linked to trade, and how trade is linked to to finance, and how to create jobs. He doesn't need. Nigeria has enough of the quote unquote World Bank people. We've gotten that thing sorted.
Exactly.
We need to drill down.
We also need charismatic. You see, I don't have any problem with the FRSC. He's a brilliant man. I've listened to this. But you see, one of the things Ngozi Wella did that a lot of people don't understand, it's not even the intricacy about running the finance ministry. Our charismatic nature and the linkage between the Nigerian capital market and the foreign capital market has been severely damaged. Now, let's be honest with ourselves. Are you telling me the FRS chairman can bring that back? You see, what the president needs is someone that will give him that foreign market credibility. Jonathan figured it out. He brought in Adanga from Goldman Sachs. If you remember, Adanga was an investment banker.
That's true.
Now, what he did was he complemented because, you see, when we want to, you see, the thing is that Nigerians have the tools to make things work. But you see, the problem I have with politicians is that we're always looking at political alignment, political this. But if you really want to solve the economy, we have a foreign credibility issue. Look at how countries are raising money with ease. Look at the perception of our market. Don't forget, Carlo, the stock market is doing very well, but we have two downgrades.
Who do is there any Nigerian you think today globally Mr. Tinubu can bring in and the dollar will just fall by $500? I have one guy in mind. Do you have anyone? That
I have, but I don't want to look like I'm. They look Kalu, even within APC. You see the problem
in APC political party, there's nobody.
No, what I mean is that the people that they are not really politicians, but they have alignment with the present administration. They have some form of, because I think what the president needs is a strong technocrat that would be independent enough to carry the money. Because what we need now, Kalu, we need FX, we need credibility, and we need discipline. So you need to bring someone that has 3 of those things.
Okay.
Or 2 of those things.
They should go. Why can't they beg this man to come, Mr. What's his name? The gentleman that had run Gatwick. His name just escaped my mind. That guy would be a good fit, don't you think so? Ogunlesi. He won't come.
I don't see BlackRock. I don't see Larry Fink leaving him.
Okay, for 2 years to run his nation, I think he will come. If you bring him coordinating minister or maybe make him ambassador extraordinaire to bring in FX or special advisor, I think he will come. He will come and help.
You know why Ngozi Iweala came to Nigeria? President Obasanjo gave her security, political guarantees. You see, for you to bring those kind of people, you must really make some huge. That's why Ngozi Iweala brought him Aruna Hotel. She was able to bring in her team. Are you telling me that?
That's true.
Are you able to allow Ogunlesi to bring in his team?
Okay.
Under this administration?
Just throwing it out there. Let me get zero equipment. Zero is your audio backup now. Zero, come in.
Yeah, I hope so.
You got a buzz on the audio.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Is it better?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is it better?
Go ahead.
So, like I was saying, like the interest rate hike, I feel it's too tight. I would have held it with a decision, but probably necessary because inflation is still yet to be tamed. We're in this disinflationary process, but we're still just 2 months in, and exchange rate plays a big role in prices. And so by raising rates, almost at the same time when the Fed cuts by 50 basis points, even China, reduced its reserve requirements, or major central banks are doing some form of easing. The ECB is likely to ease in October. And that kind of raises the yield differential and keeps the FPIs, like you said, which has been the main backing of our reserves, coming into government securities, which is necessary.
Yo, zero. I'm sorry. You're making some good points. Your audio is really off. I'm not sure what you're using, but your audio is off.
Hello.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I hope it's better.
Yeah. This is much better.
Okay.
If you can start from the top, really, because you are making a good point. They're always supposed to follow.
Okay, let me start from the top. The interest rate hike and especially the CRR, I think is a little bit too tight. If you were my decision, I would have gone for just holding it, both CRR and MPR as well. But it might be necessary in that inflation is still yet to be tamed, and exchange rate plays a big role in prices because there's a pass-through effect, and by raising rates almost at the same time when the Fed was cut by 50 basis points, they're expecting the ECB to cut in October. That also raises the yield differential. And like you said, FPIs have been the major backing of the reserves. So it keeps it coming in, which is essential for now. But that's short.
Let me get TechSoft. Let me get TechSoft here. Olympus is making some good point, but yeah, TechSoft. What's your take on this? TechSoft hopping.
Yeah. For me, I just feel that a lot of most of the leaders we have in respect to the financial part of Nigerian economy, I just feel that those guys are just more or less they want to align politically rather than doing their work. So he talked about bringing somebody who can bring down the cost of exchange rates, who can do the work and bring that exchange rate. But I feel that it will still be difficult because the entire administration is more of politics. The eagerness to do the work is lacking, and it's difficult. You see, each time you only see a custom, they're generating billions or trillions when it comes to revenue, but it doesn't really speak when it comes to the things we can afford, the things we can afford to buy, the economy in general. Nothing. Incomes are they're generating revenue, but it doesn't speak. Most times you want to bring in things and the cost of shipping in things is quite expensive, but I just feel that there's something is not just right with how the entire system is designed in Nigeria.
And you understand the point we're making about this customs exchange rate, because it's an arbitrary rate. They say they get the rate from the CBN, but they can still use $1 to £1. They don't have any obligation to use any rate. They can use any rate that they want to use. So I'm agreeing with your point completely. Even though they will say the rate is quoted by the CBN, they can subsidize that rate tomorrow, and the effect can be felt tomorrow. But they don't. They want to post IGR.
Why are they interested in not doing what is right? Like, there's something that is beyond whatever we were seeing on the open. The customer understands that if they subsidize the rates, it's beneficial to Nigerians, but they choose not to do it. So it raises the question that why are they not doing it? Why is it difficult? Like, if it's going to be beneficial, it's going to bring down the price of food. Why is it not being done? So it's about that there are a lot of things that you're trying to understand, but you can't even understand it.
True.
Carlo, if I can weigh in here, the customs is the revenue they bring in is a major part of the whole or a major chunk of government revenue, and since we are having to borrow a lot, it's tricky in the sense that you want fiscal policy to be balanced. You want to get as much revenue as you're getting, as you can get, if you know you're going to go into heavy deficit financing, and with the tight rates and all that, the CBN basically is just doing what it needs to do. Cardoso is being data dependent, and the data says tighten. The lack of direction on the fiscal side means inflation keeps rising. Like you said, food is a major part of both CPI and the common man spending, energy as well. These are major drivers. And by default, if inflation keeps rising relatively, monetary policy would somewhat have to remain in a restrictive territory so as to tame the naira flight, and by extension, exchange rate and its pass-through effects to prices. So, on the one hand, we have to borrow to keep the naira afloat and subsidize and to fund the budget as well.
I agree with you. Let me trace at you. I agree with you.
Revenue. So it's a tricky situation.
Let me trace at you. I agree with you. Look at it this way: the ASAP plan. I did my calculations. It's going to cost on the surface about 2-point-something trillion naira to implement the ASAP plan. That includes the clearing of land, the importation of food, the buying of tractors, all that stuff, about 2.5. Nigeria is going to borrow about 4 trillion from the World Bank or so this year. The point I'm making is this, right? That revenue that the customs is posting as revenues, that collection as revenues, they can post it as an investment to say we're not going to collect revenues. So the revenues become now, what do they become? It becomes zero. But that 2.5 that they post as revenues becomes a tax break to Nigerians. So when you are importing the food to Nigeria, the food in Nigeria, the price crashes. Who loses? The government loses. But the government is still going to spend 2.5 trillion. So instead of spending this 2.5 trillion to import the food, why not simply say customs, don't collect revenues. So there's no leakage anywhere. You can bring your rice to port in Lagos, clear it, moving into land in Nigeria, sell your rice. The price of rice in Nigeria will crash. What will happen? Everybody in Nigeria, from Sokoto to Jos to Ebonyi, will have cheap food at the cost of the loss of revenues to customs, which you're actually losing money because you are spending 2.5 trillion on ASAP plan to import food. So it's
Carlo,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, Carlo, for me, I just feel that based on after looking at the entire Nigerian problem, I just feel that the way that they want to really drive inflation or reduce inflation is that I think they want to go through, what they normally do in the Nigerian system, whereby the government distributes cheaper bag of rice to the various states. Then those key political personnel within the political party are now the one distributing those rice. So their subsidy is more of distributing. We're going to buy it, we're going to give you at the cheaper rate, but it's going to be distributed by...
It's counterproductive. It doesn't matter. The distribution is the last phase. They are buying the rice locally. So they are making the price of rice to go up. They are taking 5 billion naira to go to a market in Kebbi to buy local rice. Local rice cannot meet local supply. Thus, the price of Kebbi rice goes up. So when you distribute that Kebbi rice, you are adding to inflation. Buying local food is going to cost local inflation because Nigeria's problem is food availability. It's not enough. We don't make enough rice for the meals in Nigeria. Nigeria has the largest mills in Nigeria. I think number 1, 2, and 3 in Africa are in Nigeria. The one in Lagos is the largest in the whole of Africa. The one in Nasarawa, in King Kogi, at Kogi and Nasarawa, number 2, number 3. There's one also in Sokoto. So we have even the 4 largest mills, maybe in Africa or Sub-Saharan Africa. But we don't have rice paddy. We don't have rice paddy. Dry season rice farming was started by Additional after the floods that we had. The same floods that we're having now, Additional took those floods and did dry season farming. Remove those rice paddy, we do dry season. We only do rice farming in one season during the year. So we don't have rice paddy. So the issue is not to buy food and distribute. It's to bring in the food because you don't have enough. You can't close the borders to what you're not making. It's like someone telling you, let's close the border so we'll produce our own PMS. Why don't they do that? Why don't we close the border and say NNPC must give us PMS? Why do we import PMS? Because the rich guys don't need food from Nigeria. They import their own food. But you, the poor guy, in quotes, you have to eat local food. But PMS, the rich guys need PMS, so they import it. Once it touches the rich, they answer. Once the airlines are going to be banned, CBN releases money. But no one in Nigeria has ever subsidized food in Nigeria. Food. And food is 51% of CPI and 57% of the budget. It's never been subsidized. Babatunde, what's on your mind, Babatunde? Babatunde Tosin, how are you? Go ahead.
I'm fine. Good evening, everyone.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Hello. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, I really want to talk about the food importation. For me, I believe we really don't need it now. For me, I think we need to just increase our supply, our food supply for now. Rice, beans, and everything. Even in Nigeria now, I can tell you for a fact, anyone in Nigeria now can attest to it that rice is not the most expensive food we have in Nigeria now. The likes of beans and maize are even more expensive than rice now. So for me, I think we just need to increase our supply, our local supplies. And how can the government do that? Is to just try and roll out loans, grants to everybody that is willing to farm, either crops or livestock. I think that's the best thing. So when we do that, fine. If I know once they roll out loans and all that, our dollar the naira might fall.
But
if it falls, it doesn't.
Sorry,
yes,
I apologize for interrupting you. You know, I was alive when we had Operation Feed the Nation.
Okay.
It's the exact same thing you are saying. Operation Feed the Nation. Do you know what that was?
Yes, I remember. I was
Obasanjo.
alive.
Yeah, Obasanjo. Then we had MAMSA. Then we've had every president or head of state in Nigeria has done, let's diversify the economy, let's go back to farming. Babangida says go back to farming. Even the Tinubu farming, I will do 50 million youths, everyone says it. The reality today is this. Nigerian farmers at a point went and told the government to ban import of maize. The government banned import of maize, poultry prices went up. The reality, the cold, hard number is that Nigeria doesn't produce enough food. Cassava, Nigeria is the largest producer of cassava in the world. Same with yams. But food is expensive in Nigeria, not because we don't produce, but because we don't process, harvest, post-production. So when there's harvest, there's maize everywhere. You see maize in all the gutters. You see maize everywhere. We eat maize, we throw away maize. But after maize season, you can't see maize again. Maize goes up in price. Same with mango. Same with orange. So there is nothing you can do on earth that can increase the price, the volume of maize planted by 20% in a year. You can't do it immediately. You must import as a short term, and not for long-term import. It will kill farmers in Nigeria. For a short term, 90-day window, you import food. That drops inflation. Then medium term, you do what you are saying. That's what you're saying. You then increase the yield. You do the acreage, which is what the government is doing with the ASAP plan. The ASAP plan says we're going to clear more land. We're going to bring in tractors. We're going to bring in fertilizer. That's the medium to long-term plan. You can't plant maize today and get maize tomorrow. It's not possible. For the 90 days when that maize is in the ground, import the food. When the maize is out, you then process it, and then you keep on doing it year in, year out to get the volume up. Dangote had Dangote tomato factory in Kano. He couldn't get tomatoes for his factory. Dangote tomato is the largest in Africa. He couldn't get tomato. The rice mills that are quoted all over Nigeria, they don't have rice paddy. There is nothing you will quote. Nigeria doesn't have the largest stuff. What largest refinery? We have no crude oil. What largest LNG plant? We have no gas. Largest rice paddy? We have no rice. Largest tomato plant? We have no tomato. Everything you quote, cart before the horse. The system is broken. And if it's broken, you rebuild it. So what you're saying is completely correct. But I think we have to be realistic and say we cannot grow food in 90 days, which is the whole plan. Bring it food for 90 days, after which you can then do local ones. I don't know if you want to add anything about it because I interrupted you. Babatunde, did you want to add anything else?
Yeah. No, that's just what I want to say. I just feel we need to increase our supply.
Gotcha.
And for me, I believe we're on the same train for more than 6 years, because Buhari has closed the border for more than 6 years now. Since then, if we have been increasing our supply, I think we should be somewhere by now. Even now that the dollar is up, it should be an advantage for us, because by now we should be exporting our food to other countries, our neighboring countries like Burkina Faso,
Exactly.
Togo, and all that.
Exactly. If we had more supply, our farmers would be millionaires today, because with the weak naira, we can export that cassava, and our farmers in Ebonyi, in Kogi will be billionaires. But we're not, because we don't have enough. Let me give you an economic story. Pure water. Before pure water, people formed the union and wanted to increase the price. Pure water was the only commodity in Nigeria that the price did not go above 5 naira. Do you know why it didn't go above 5 naira? Supply. Anywhere you go to in Lagos or in any city in Nigeria, you see pure water. Different brands, different whatever. You can't increase your price of pure water, even if you're making a loss, because once you increase your price, there's a substitute. People go and buy the next one. It's 5 naira a bag. End of story. That was it, because the supply, whether it was clean water or dirty water, was immaterial. The point was that it was available. Hence, the price stayed still. It is supply that keeps prices low. If there's supply of food in Nigeria, the prices will fall. You don't need any government to show you. Once there's supply of something in the market, the price will go down. So if the price of food in Nigeria has not been going down, it's because there is not enough supply. It's basic economics. And we can deceive ourselves, and we can post chat from the government and say price is going, supply is going up. But if the supply is up, price has to fall. Let me get this. Inya Luziba Itesi. If I got that name wrong, I apologize. Inya Luziba.
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit correct.
How
Yeah,
you
good
doing?
evening, everyone.
Yep, go ahead.
I'm fine. Yeah, so I want to talk about the food production issue. I think there need to be intentional food production, not just looking at the federal government, but the state governors. What exactly are they doing when it comes to food production? Every time you hear we are rolling out a program, for farmers and blah, blah, blah. The truth is that most times these monies they say they are giving to farmers they are not real farmers. The people in the villages that are farming, the small older farmers, don't get these soft loans or the farm inputs. So that's when it's time to distribute, either it's through, let's say, maybe the agri development program in their state. You see politicians coming with all sort of lists. They will come, my constituency people, So this money is shared to, I call them fake farmers, audio farmers. They are not the real people farming. So if food production can be intentional such that the real people that are farming, they are the ones that get these resources from the government, I think it will go a long way. And once there is supply, like you all have said, the food price will come down. And then you still have the issue of post-harvest losses. When the food is in season, you just have food just waste all over the place. We are not even the value chain, looking at the value chain of all these food that we produce. So a lot of things can be done, but our governors, are they intentional about it? It's only when they're intentional to produce food, that's when we can have a reduction in food prices.
I think that's a brilliant submission. I think you're totally correct. Like anything that we've said here, we're linking this food to the topic because CBN is talking about inflation, and CBN is saying that they're raising the MPR because even though food has come down, energy and the rest are still up. But food is the key factor for inflation in Nigeria. So we're talking about food. Let me also address this your governor's issue. You are completely correct. If the governors do not focus on food will not, or agriculture will not be a main thing in Nigeria. Let me give you a story. Before Nigeria became Nigeria, when we had northern Nigeria, western Nigeria, and eastern Nigeria and middle, the largest export of Nigeria, the one I've seen as at before 1960, Nigeria's largest export was groundnuts. So the north of Nigeria, northern Nigeria, were providing more forex to the Confederation of Nigeria from selling groundnuts. And I posted it here on my page before. You see it there. The British posted it. Northern Nigeria was bringing in more forex to Nigeria. This was before oil was discovered, though, right? When Nigeria became a federal republic in 1969 or 1970s, we then changed to FARC. We then had the governors lost their ability to tax local industries, and only the federal government could tax, and only the federal government could incorporate companies. What happened was that the north of Nigeria abandoned agriculture and then focused on crude oil because crude oil was now a federal resource, no longer a state resource. Before 1970, crude oil was state, i.e. the revenues went to the region, not to the federation, to the region. So it's going back to the point I'm making about state governors and all that. If we want to be intentional about agriculture, we've got to give states the power to incorporate, right? Incorporate farming, conglomerate farming, and to also tax them and to also own them. States own the land, thus states should be able to ensure to basically own the land, incorporate companies, and own the resources that come from that land, not federal government. The federal government has no business taxing corporations in a state. I don't think it should just be the federal government that will take corporate income tax, register state companies that want to do business in court. I don't think so. The state should be given that power because they own the land. Federal has no land. States own the land. The Land Use Act should be working for the state. It shouldn't be one all-encompassing land law, but the states or the regions should be able to have their own land laws, which should then drive agriculture, which should then make us more mechanized, and then should then drive this fall in food prices because there's more supply. But let me let Ken hop in here. Ken, what's up?
Yeah, good evening. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. Great discussion so far. Well, for me, on this matter, I will say what I've said before, because Mr. Cardoso, even though he's sounding very frustrated, because since he assumed office, he's been doing the right things. I would say that, with my chest, looking at what he's been doing on one side, which is the monetary side, and as he has said, he can't do it alone. He's being faced with the fiscal side that is indisciplined, the fiscal side that makes allocation for an illegal office like the First Lady's office and allocate billions to fund offices. And that's just an example. We can see the receipt of a lot of spendings, on what? On imported vehicles. Largely imported vehicles.
On decoration for the First Lady. Decoration.
Exactly. Or decorations, the Vice President's house, building houses for judges. And, you can see all these spendings are geared towards people who are close to this administration at the end of the day. And where you need the spendings to go, and where you need to tighten your belt, so that you can complement the effort of the other side, so that your economic KPIs can start to improve. They are not doing that. So for me, I'm sorry to Mr. Cardoso. He is not going to see the results he wants to see, because Nigeria's economy keeps defying economics. Because when you do what you are supposed to do, in the world of economics, you expect to see a particular result. But in Nigeria, the reverse happens. To be honest, 6 months ago, I was confident that by the time this Dangote's refinery comes on stream, and, with the efforts of Cardoso, we would see Naira, go down even below 1,000. We saw it hit 1,000. But right now, it has hit 1,007, defying everything. And now we are beginning to see that the whenever FARC is released, the price of the exchange rate goes crazy. So at this point, it's true Cardoso cannot do it on his own. You require the fiscal side to come and help, but exactly how can they help? Because they are all linked together. If you go after domiciliary accounts today, it's like going after the less than 1% so-called elites in Nigeria, and they won't want that. They will all come out and fight. It's like a house set up against itself. What will happen? The house will crumble. So for me, I'm not optimistic about any results right now until the fiscal side takes it serious and start doing what they need to do on their side to complement the effort of Mr. Cardoso. And what I would do if I were Mr. Cardoso, if in the next 1 year the fiscal side is not doing what they are supposed to do, I will tender my resignation, because there's absolutely nothing that man can do to change the tides with regards to where the Naira is heading to right now. I think I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
The Naira is at 1,700. Who can bet here that the Naira will not get to 2,000? I was a bit worried when I saw the CBN selling dollars again at below the market price. It's the same scenario. Do you remember this same scenario when they were selling dollars a few days ago?
Exactly. We are getting to that point again where we start seeing that arbitrage. You remember that arbitrage of over 300 Naira spread? That politicians exploited. In fact, they borrowed money, they borrowed dollars and shared it amongst themselves.
Why can't the BDCs go and get their own dollars? Why do the BDCs need the CBN to give them dollars? What I've never understood. Only Nigeria does that.
This only happens This only happens in Nigeria. Only Nigeria. No other country does it. Only in Nigeria. Different rates. We are back to it again.
Gotcha.
The matter is that he can't get dollars. What's his capability? How many? Look at our exports, Carlo. How many Nigerians bring in $10 million a month? Even some banks, if you look at NBS data, in a year, some banks, capital importation is not even up to $5 million.
But what about the $500 someone brings it from? I go to London, I'm coming back, I have $100 in my pocket. That's what you should target. You should target those $100, $50. That's what you go to all these countries for tourism. The BDCs are the shops. Why are we making BDCs this big institution? BDC is Mama Put. Give Mama Put license. If you come to buy a ECAWU and you are from Canada, you are paying, let her collect dollars from you and take it on her BDC license. Why must BDC be this corporate wearing suits?
Yes, the reason is because of the way our FX market is being positioned. You've forgotten that this is an import-driven country. The countries where BTCs look like Mama Put is because the efficiency of their market has made in such a way that they can ignore pools from even macro players. Their inputs will only provide liquidity rather than distort the market. The issue here is that the BTCs here are kind of systemic, was systemic until crypto exchanges remittance took shape. Now, it has gone beyond these agencies, just like what the CBN has said, back allocation. The question is, when your border is porous, there's no country in the world, even in the United States, they have a technical way at which they make their market controlled. Moving funds from one market to the other is not instant. It goes through channels. And, in Nigeria, we don't have that. So the truth of the matter is that, just like what Kenneth said, until fiscal discipline comes to play, when Pharaoh of Egypt needed help, God did not send food, God did not send money. God sent Joseph to portray fiscal discipline. When every great country, why nations failed, I read that book over and over, institutions are created to bring in efficiency and discipline. We don't have that. We don't have that. So until the system has blocked all the leakages, I'm sorry to say, whatever Cardoso does, it will shut them.
Interesting. I like the reference to Joseph and Egypt, but let's also remember that the Pharaoh only succeeded because he listened to Joseph. In the end, Joseph could give him a dream, but Pharaoh was smart enough to say, "You go implement that dream. You go do it." He didn't say, "Okay, my brother will go and implement the dream. Thank you for your analysis." He said, "No, you go implement the dream," and he gave Joseph the power and everything to implement the dream. Not, "My brother will do it. Thank you for your service." I hear you. Babatunde, what's on my Babatunde?
I think you guys just hit the nail on the head right there. What we are battling here as a nation is a lack of political will to deal with issues. If you look at all of the success we had, the bit of success we had under the Obasanjo's regime, there was the political will to achieve success. Maybe not completely. There were a couple of things that administration could have done better. But there was the political will to, one, go after the right Josephs. Olumide mentioned that earlier. Obasanjo was very deliberate. Jonathan did a bit also, going after the right people with that clout to help smoothing things out with the international community, listing the Nigerian bond on very critical markets. All of those things were deliberate and things that required the political will of the president. Right now, the president seems to be blinded by his loyalty to a lot of people that are grossly underperforming. For one, Cardoso expressed how the physical side had let him down. But for me, I won't only inch the performance of the fiscal side on the ministers, especially Wale Edun, who is the coordinating minister for the economy and also leading finance, but also the president, because everything that has to do with the physical side has to do with a lot with politics and the president also. We've talked about the fact that the spending has been very, very loose. The level of leakages that we have in government today. So if the president lacks the will to stem all of these things, we are going to be here discussing the same thing come by the end of his tenure as the president of this country. The last 8 years under Buhari was the same. The fiscal side didn't enjoy that political will to give backing to critical people. So for me, Cardoso can do all he wants to do. He's following the books as to how he should deal with inflation, doing things he's supposed to do, allowing the free market, not trying to control interest rates, and also old exchange rates to and also expect flow of capital into the economy. He's doing the right thing. For the kind of inflation we have, he needs to increase rates so that at least you can give investors real returns on their investment. So for me, what is missing here in a nutshell is the political will. And until the president sits down and backs things up, he's saying a lot of things, but nothing is being done on ground. Look at all of the things he had promised, from a new minimum wage. I was hearing reports from a lot of people around what was done for other cadres beyond just the minimum expected. It's just ridiculous. Where are all the credit to the real sectors, SMEs that you talked about a few months, sometimes last year? We don't still have that. The CNG buses he had talked about to lower cost of transportation. We still don't have anything to this. So everything he has talked about, nothing has been done. But for all of the permutation that Cardoso is doing on the monetary side, we probably would have been eating 2,500 right now. So that's my summation. Political will, or we're still going to be here forever.
I hear you. I mean, sometimes I want to define this political will for me. We passed an anthem in 5 days, Abi. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. Anthem was passed. Then we can't pass to import rice in 5 days. I mean, it's like we have political will for what favors us. Private jet was bought for the president without NAS. I mean, how long did that take? The NAS was even the one advocating for it. But no one has advocated for students' loan to be passed the same way. It was, we have to go through this one, go through that committee, but private jet was done, boom, it was done. So, there's political will, but it's just like what favors them.
So that's what I'm saying, that the political will to solve the physical issues.
I agree with you.
What we don't have. So when it is what the first family will need, you have the political will to get it done. Another part that we also saw was the political will to even fight for autonomy for the local government. But guess what? After the Supreme Court judgment, everything seems to be thinning out. It was supposed to be 3 months for the execution for everybody to conduct a local government election. But I don't know, for one reason or the other, it seems the governors have gotten to the president, and that thing is also losing steam. So political will, when it affects the political elite, you see them spring to action. When it affects the masses, the country as a whole, you see them moving at below snail pace, which is absolutely ridiculous. For me, until the people wake up and realize that their enemy is the political elite, until we strike fear into those guys, nothing will change. Trust me.
Electoral fear, you mean, right? Like fear of losing at the ballot.
Obviously, I'm not sure we can even do that now, considering what has happened in Edo, what happened at the last polls also, because I personally don't believe some of the results we saw there reflect the will of the people. So right now, and you can see how the judiciary seems to be at the forefront of the current administration's plan, trying to do everything to settle them.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. Do you think Nigerians know that there is corruption and they want to get their share, or they don't really understand that who they vote in makes them poor? Do you think that they don't know, or they know but just want to get their share? What's your sense?
So I don't think it's as straightforward as you put it, and I'll tell you why. I think a certain section of the country are beginning to be very, very aware, and they are trying a lot to change things. But I think also the political class understand this, and they understand that there is abject poverty in the land. So they keep throwing those peanuts to the critical mass that is ridiculously poor. And again, you know from the story of Cain and Abel, sometimes people don't even think about the future for a morsel of soup or bread, and I think that's the problem. I packed in my head. I'm praying. I don't know, to be honest. I'm just praying that maybe one day the hunger of the poor in Nigeria, because I believe all of us understand that our biggest problem is corruption. Everybody's just waiting for their turn, even the poor guy on the street. So it feels, let me just collect the 10K, the 5K I can see right now, and wait for the miracle that will happen.
So let me ask you a question. If I took $1 billion and I'm a Southern Christian, and I went to, say, Yobe State, could I get the people in Yobe to vote for a Southern Christian if I give them 50,000 naira per vote?
That's something I would say yes, because we saw some of it play out at the last election.
So you're
So
saying,
how
so you're saying an Igbo man can win in Yobe State if he spends $1 billion and bribes the people there, they would vote against someone from their tribe or their religion.
Maybe not for an Igbo man, because of the way that we've weaponized
Yoruba man.
things against the Igbos.
Yoruba
maybe
man.
Yoruba man. Yes,
They
maybe
call
Yoruba man.
Yoruba man. They will vote
Yes,
a,
maybe they call Yoruba
a
man.
Christian Yoruba man.
Now it now becomes difficult. You've added the second layer that the political class keep using, which is religion.
So
ethnicity
because my question is really going to the fact that that Nigerians know, but I think the Nigerians defer more to tribe and religion than to their economy,
which is fanned by the political class. You can't imagine how much the political class. I'll give you an example, and this was probably one of the things that just started giving me a different opinion about Nigeria. I was serving in Niger State a couple of years back, sometimes around 2010 or I think it was 2011, yes, the Jonathan election. And while I was serving, I have this Megad guy in my compound that we always gist and all of that. And the guy, everybody was always saying Jonathan. And the Friday before the election, the guy came back and the guy was like, Koba, that is no more Jonathan. And I'm like, why? He said, their imam said that if they vote Jonathan, they will lower Nigeria's flag in Saudi Arabia. And if it is not a Muslim, Nigeria's flag will be lowered and they won't get a lot of. So I don't ask myself, so if the Nigerian flag is being flown in Saudi Arabia, how has that affected you when we had Muslim head of state? The guy didn't know. But guess what? Somebody had paid the imam at the mosque to go and preach that heresy to those folks. So the political elites, they are very. I think that sometimes we underestimate what those guys are doing in terms of finding ethnicity and religion.
I hear you. I just want to ask that question, just to understand if it was sometimes it's money, it's a money thing. But I don't know. Maybe some. Let me get Cliff. What's your take on what we're talking about, Cliff? Cliff, we're talking about the Central Bank of Nigeria. MPR has been raised, so interest rates in Nigeria are going to go up. The CBN seems exasperated, and we're wondering what's next. Food inflation is not going to go down soon because yields are not going down soon. What's your take, Cliff?
All right, Carlo, thank you for having me, and it's been a wonderful conversation here. So, from my own perspective, I have some questions. I hear most times where, when we talk about inflation, the focus seems to be always on the demand pool, like, referring to FAC and all that. But I want us to also think about the cost push inflation itself. And I'm thinking about this when I make reference to the escalating geopolitical crisis that's happening now. And there are certain questions that came to my head. First of all, we're talking about, money chasing few goods. And for some period now, over the past 1 year, we've seen a lot of companies that have left the country. And of course, we also see that the value and the volume of goods are actually declining, I'm sure at a geometric rate, if I'm not mistaken. And then we also see that even the purchasing power of the average citizen in Nigeria has actually declined significantly. So, when we talk about this core inflation too, I tend to imagine that what percentage of that 51% that you said, you mentioned, is actually produced in Nigeria, because there is a lot of wastage when it comes to food that is produced in Nigeria, because we don't have a way to store and even convey them to the point of consumption. So what percentage do we actually produce in Nigeria, and what percentage do we import into Nigeria to serve as a complement to what is locally produced?
That's a great question, Cliff. That's a great question. Yeah.
Yeah. And then for FAC, that is the bone of contention here. So I'm asking, when these governors receive FAC, I know the first thing, maybe allegedly, that they do is to convert these monies into FX. Now, what is that FX used for? Is it also for importation? How does it contribute?
Is to store stolen cash in water tankers. You can keep it. That's why that's the problem, Cliff. Because if you, again, when you print dollars, people say when you print money, it causes inflation. It's not always true. In America, when Obama became the president, they had quantitative easing. They had QE1, QE2, even QE3, I think. They printed trillions of dollars. Look at the inflation in America. There was no inflation. What happened? The money was soaked up. That's why you see all these IT firms that started Snapchat. All these IT firms got that cheap capital and took risks, and America created new companies with the money they printed. The printing of money causes the problem when it goes through the economy with velocity and there's nothing to do. So you go to Lagos, you buy a piece of land in Lekki for 100 billion. You simply sit on that land. In 6 months, you sell that same plot of land to 200 million naira to your friend. Your friend sells it back to you for 500 million naira. In a year's time, you sell it to another guy for 1 billion. From 100 million to 1 billion. You haven't done improvements. You haven't done sites and services. You haven't even surveyed the land. But the land has got from 100 million to 1 billion. That's the inflation we're having in Nigeria. If it was in a different country, you have to at least have put pipes, water bond on that land to make it go from 100 to 1 billion. Because there's so much cash in the economy. When there's FARC and a guy receives FARC money, that money is quote unquote free to him. He doesn't care how much the land is. So if he comes to the land, I'll tell him the land is 500 million. He will pay 500 million. Doesn't care. So when I have land in Lekki or land in Abuja or land in Abia State, I can sell it to the FARC friendly people because those guys have cost of capital as zero. If your cost of capital is zero, then you don't care how much you buy dollar or land at. Cliff, that's the thing.
So, Carlo, my question is, are we only to be fixated on the demand pool aspect of the inflation that we're experiencing, or do we also consider what's playing out globally? How it's also going to impact Nigeria significantly going forward?
I think Nigeria's inflation is actually cost push. It's not the demand side, it's the cost side, i.e. the supply constraint. That's where Nigeria's inflation comes from, not the demand. Nigerians are not consuming. How many Nigerians do you know have bought a new television or a new fridge or a new blender? How many Nigerians do you know bought a brand new fridge? They don't consume. They don't have money. If you give Nigerian workers today 1 million naira, right, they will spend it on basics that they haven't done in years. New curtain, new school tennis shoes for their kids. Things they have, the normal things that normal middle class families do that they haven't done. They will spend it like that. And there should be no inflation because you are soaking up the excess inventory that these multinationals are holding. If you go to Lagos, those factories and the warehouses, you've got excess unsold inventories because they take a 500 kg of cocoa and they put it into sachets to sell. Because nobody can buy a 50 kg of milk or cocoa or sugar. Going back to your question about imports of food, all the sugar we eat in Nigeria is imported. All. So look at where we use sugar, pastries, it's all imported. So we bag the sugar here locally. In my village, for instance, the staple food is gari. So they do cassava and then they make gari. So in my mind, I'm thinking where there's a foreign input. The cassava is in the ground, they don't use fertilizer. They can't afford it. They don't use fertilizer, they can't afford it. They bring the cassava out, they don't use mechanics. They tie the cassava, they take out the wheat, the water, then they fry it with firewood, and then they sell it there. The problem is scaling. Once you want to scale agriculture, you must use an imported either fertilizer or diesel or transportation. That's where the inflation comes and hits food. Food in Nigeria is cheap. It's to scale. That's the problem.
So, Carlo, what is the CBN basing its decision on? Is it on cost push or on demand pull?
Both of them.
Because they keep talking about the 107 trillion in circulation. So, what is their decision to hike MPR based on?
They said that they saw food prices going down, but that the core energy price is still going up. So based on that, they are not confident enough to reduce MPR. They are saying, in effect, that food might be coming down because of the harvest and not because of productivity gains in that food sector. So it's not a question of we are more productive, then food prices went down. It's more of the harvest came, food has come down because energy is still up. That's what they're saying. Olumide, you were going to say something? Yeah.
There are two things that I want to highlight to them. So, the CBN is fighting both ends. But the reality is that what is really triggering the market is the fact that, you see, when you have one leakage, everything, the domino starts falling and becomes wider. So, look at this from this angle. God has explained how money, despite the fact that money supply can be high and inflation can still be low, because it's backed by production, it's backed by commodity. That's the institutions behind money. And what monetary inflation experts fail to realize is that when production is up, it neutralizes the effect of the money supply. Now, I'm not giving an excuse for ways and means, but you see, if you look at the behavioral pattern in Nigeria, now let's take it back. When FX was stable, when the exchange was stable, how do the politicians, it wasn't that they were not speculating with the dollar, but the incentive there was not so much because the dollar was stable, because it was subsidized. Now, what they were doing then was to put money in fixed income, delay worker salary for 9 months, 10 months, they make money from the returns, or they go into fixed investment because they get their money back, or fixed deposits, CDs. Now, the Naira have lost their advantage it had. So now they see the fact that the currency, whether you like it or not, it will hit the 1.5 within 3-4 months. So the incentive to speculate, so it's more of a behavioral and cultural problem. Now,
of course,
the problem we're having is the leaks. Because, see, you're asking me what are they using the dollars to do? Have you seen the budget allocation of each Nigerian state? The average Nigerian state spends more money on government office than on health, education, agriculture combined. There is a state, there are 2 states in the south that spend more money on entertainment than on education. So when you are now asking for what they're spending money on, you could just check the priorities of each state. The issue here is that the differential is that over there we had a president that, even though he overstepped his boundaries, could hit on the state to wake up, to work. But right now, the president is very political. He respects, which is not a bad thing.
No, let's call a spade. The Tinubu's problem is this: he won with a very, very low margin, so he can't drive change without bribing people. When I mean bribe, political bribery. He can't do anything major, because if he wants to do anything major, look how he removed fuel subsidy. People shouted, he brought it back. He has a very, very low base to work with. That's Tinubu.
Very true. Very true. But he could do something that he has been able to work on. And I say that he has gotten the government to his governors to his coffers. If you look at the election tribunal case and everything, I don't think any governor lost out. And if you look at the loyalty of each governor official, because I look at the political relationship with economic development, it has been quite cohesive. Many governors really see the government, despite the fact that they have different political views. They have the president, the president there. So I feel that, despite the fact that it's not popular among the populace, if you look at the election in Edo State, for example, and that's why I tell you, Kadu, that the president can still make things happen if he really wants things to happen. I understand that there are different interests in the country, but he can begin making the system efficient. Our problem is simple. Money is not trickling down at education. Look at what Dambilo did with 5 million.
7 million, yeah. 7 million. That's true.
Yeah. So what he did with 4 million? That is less than $5,000. So are we still?
You're right. I mean, you're right. I mean, they have shared the report I spoke about earlier. So 30 governors spent 968 billion on refreshment. This is just refreshment to 30 governors, not the whole 30 governors, and all usual suspects are there from Abia to the others. 30 governors, 968 billion. So everybody's hand is inside there.
Yeah, Carlos, so the question is that, see, I tell someone, you want the naira to be stable, punch the black market. Balance was just an excuse. The populists don't have that command of liquidity. See, ask every average banker. Cardoso has increased CRR to 50%. That's why Nigerian banks will never give industries loan. The loans you are seeing there is just cosmetic. They have come to investment banks. Look at all their profits. Most of it came from treasury management.
Yep.
So people think that banking now is even tough. Banking now is tough because CRR is at 50%. Do you know what that means? So it's not that.
Okay, but let me ask you a question. Let me put on the spot. The NSA, the National Security Advisor, was reported to be the one that arrested the Binance guys for this Forex. Are we saying the NSA cannot arrest the Forex dealers that are converting this cash to dollars for the governor? Because it's literally raw Naira cash. FARC is not given to you in cash. FARC is given to you in transfer. So look at how it has to happen. You have to go to a Nigerian bank. You have to withdraw billions from a Nigerian bank. They have to take those billions of cash. Either you can't transfer, because if you transfer, they will see it. They have to take cash out, then put the cash back in to break the chain, so it's not traceable. Then the Bureau de Change will then give them dollar cash. Is the NSA saying they cannot track this thing we are just describing here?
No, Kalu, it's not that they cannot track it, but Kalu, how did the governor spend $1 billion dollar equivalent on his kids' school fees? How did it happen?
It's the same way he did it. He took the money out as cash, bought dollar, and paid.
You see, me and you cannot hurt the naira. Me and you don't have that liquidity yet to hurt the naira. It's not the populace. How much does the average Nigerian have? Forget social media paper billionaires. It's not those ones that hurt the naira market. There are pools, yes, you can see it from there. It's not the people hurting the market. We know who is hurting the market. Liquidity does not lie. In fact, liquidity has shown when money enters, the black market loses.
So what are we doing about it, Unimde? What are we doing about it? That's the point. The question we're asking. What are we doing about it? This is not it's not hidden. Any banker knows what we're saying. How money is moved by government folks to avoid. We know.
The people that are behind it are gods in our country.
All right. Yeah, I hear you. Let's get Hammer in here. Let's do Hammer King. We're gonna round up very soon, guys. We'll spend an hour, 30 minutes already. So we're winding down stage. Hammer, you've got the floor. Hammer, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Carlo. Good day, everybody. I've been taking notes on some of the things a lot of people have been saying, and it's been very insightful. But I have a baseline for my conversation. It may be a little bit different, in terms of background. First, let's look at talked about inflation. Let's look at the exchange, Naira exchange since 1999. Of course, based on that, 1999, you see the record that at least at some point, Naira was exchanged at 21 Naira in 1999 to a dollar. If you cascade everything down to 2024, you will see how things have changed. I think what we should be looking at here is who was head of state at the time and what type of team did they bring, to be able to help them build this economy. Nobody has a magic wand to, build an economy. It's just basically bringing the right people into play to help rejuvenate the economy. Some people will argue that maybe in 1999, even in the Western world, things were not as, beautiful, maybe in terms of even IT, in terms of development, in terms of innovation. Things were not as beautiful as it is today. But, there's always a baseline, that has triggered many of all these differences. And I think that's where I'm going to be coming from. in all of these things that have been happening, it's very clear. You know, you were having, like I said, I had so many notes while people were talking. You talked about Operation Feed the Nation, Obasanjo, 1976, I think. What happened after Operation Feed the Nation? There are stories that says that even the place occupied by Obasanjo right now in Otafam was part of the places used for Operation Feed the Nation, converted to personal property. If you look at instances like that, somebody talked about political will, you know, action. We're talking about action plan. We're talking about political will. You know, we're talking about so many things that, you know, encompasses this will for people to be able to take action, to say, these are the things we want to do as a government. These are the decisions that has to be made, you know, without considering political affiliation or political party, you know. He also mentioned previously in one of the conversations that why should the federal government be, you know, interested in state land? You know, look at Buhari's period when he wanted to, you know, grab land in the southern region for his people. You know, so these are some of the things that affect decisions that are supposed to be targeted towards ensuring that people's lives are easy. You know, people can actually have food on their table. Your last speaker made very salient point that we do not have what it takes to wreck the economy to the point that it is. It means that the people in government are the ones, you know, causing all these harms. So what are the solutions? I think that first and foremost, which now comes back to my baseline, is that if there are people interested in making Nigeria really work, you know, it means that we have to go back to say, listen, there are things that the federal government cannot involve themselves in. For example, if you go to Abia State, let me use Abia State for example. Abia State should be able to control its, what you call the FRSC, Federal Road Safety Corps. You know, Abia State should be able to handle its own road safety corps, which means that if you buy a car and you ride your car in Abia State, you live in Abia State, you should be able, your regulations should be based on Abia. It doesn't mean that you cannot drive your car outside of Abia State. You know, I was talking to some few people, I think about 10 years ago, and I said, why is it difficult for us to actually have an agency just like NAFDAC, you know, in every state? For example, in Imo State where I'm from, you have 27 local governments. Why not you have all these agencies that is now known as federal agencies in every local government? You have local government chairmen where they are in control. If the small businesses, which are the major crowns of the economy, if the small businesses are located in a particular place, they are under a particular local government. They are not under federal government. They are not located in Abuja or they are located in states, located under every local government. Why not local governments have all these federal agencies, you know, customized into state agencies located at the local government areas, or what they call local government offices, counties, you know, where they can regulate some of all the businesses, you know, all the things that they do, you know, with these businesses. For example, food, you know, food production, medicine. It should be regulated by NAFDAC. NAFDAC too should be sent back to the local government to be able to say, okay, in this local government, for every single food producer, you know, restaurant and all of that, you need to take license to be able to provide this amount of food quality, you know, or farmers to be able to provide this amount of food production. You know, we know where you are. Somebody talked about pseudo farmers. They say, oh, we're giving out $500 billion to farmers. You have lots of politicians, you know, sending their relatives and all to go and grab these monies. At the end of the day, we find out that there's no farmers anywhere. And that's where part of the things that have caused many of all this inflation. You have so many people saying that they are Burundi change, but they are politicians. My dad has a Burundi change license, you know. I remember back in the days when he would say, oh, they need to get this autonomy. You know, as an Igbo man, when he talks about this autonomy, you have to pay for this. And I'll be wondering, what's this man talking about? What is? Yeah.
I I like the summary, and I think you made us so. I just wanted to if you can land the ship. I want to get some guys to speak.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, what I'm just saying is, there has to be a political will to solve this problem, and to solve this problem, it's not about grabbing it and running with it. It's also about bringing the right people to work. You talked about Aki Adesina, what's his name, the guy with the African Development Bank. Those type of people will not come back to the current situation to come and salvage, our problems. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, somebody talked about her and the Aruma Ote, during the Obasanjo's time. Those people would not come in such an administration to salvage the problem, because the leader of the gang is the one that dictates, what happens. The fiscal policy side and the monetary policy side, there has to be coercion, because if at the federal government, they are making certain fiscal policy decisions, and the monetary policy that's supposed to be able to galvanize many of all this implementation in terms of ministers and all, they are not working together. It will absolutely rumble. It will make no sense. So it's a very difficult, it's a tall order. It's a very difficult thing to do. What needs to be done first and foremost is to be able to say, this country, this is what we need to do if we must move forward. State has to be able to arrange and manage a chunk of what is, known as the federal, what you call...
exclusive list.
Exactly, exclusive list, There are certain things that have to go off the federal government, for things to actually work. I don't want to start talking about, when it was regions and all of that. We saw the successes that regions made at the time, including farming and all of that. Those things can work, but it can only work in a situation where the country is structured in a manner and size that would encourage, the type of changes that we want to see in the economy.
Gotcha. All right, Hammer, thanks for that. That was a good summary. Lots of things you brought in there. Good summary. Guys, I want to see if we can round out by the top of the hour. I've got Akin, I've got Kingling, I've got Mobolaji. Let's just take it and see what I'm going to... Olinde also is going to come back in. Let's do Kingling, then Akin, then Olumide. Kingling, you've got the floor. And it's like Chinomso. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. I hope you're having a great weekend. Well, my point is very small. It might not be about the interest rates, but I think these things, basically, when I see a lot of economic, especially from Mr. Kalu, posting these advice and suggestions, I think one of the basic things we need in Nigeria is basically rule of law, because without these things, we really cannot control how things go. I've been hearing about things they could do, people they could hire and all that. But of course, nobody is accountable. So anybody can choose anybody to be in sensitive positions, and then we can see that from every facet of Nigeria life. So basically, I think we should just try to help the small and medium-scale businesses in Nigeria, because what I see is that a lot of them are not educated enough in terms of finance and economic principles. And they really can't even demand the best things for themselves. We can also see that about the demand for subsidy and how a lot of Nigerians feel about that. So for me, basically, the only thing that can make Nigeria economic thrive is rule of law. And I think once we fix that, even our exchange rates will definitely come up. That's all I have to say.
I mean, you brought up the issue about the SMEs. It's crazy, Today, if someone comes to me and says, I'm an SME guy, should I be in business? It's very, very hard to tell the person yes. How can you operate in an economy where your MPR is 27%? Without credit, you cannot have an SME class. And SMEs are the driver of growth and employment in any economy, the US, any economy. SMEs drive growth and employment. But when you tackle inflation, you have to raise the MPR. Fantastic. But in this inflation, the CBN can't win this fight because it's not fighting monetary expansion alone. It's fighting supply constraint caused by insecurity that's allowing food not to flow. So should the CBN not be innovative enough to say, let's look for a way where we can support the SMEs in Nigeria, but we can also fight inflation. I don't think it's right to keep MPR rates so high that manufacturers are going out of business because you want to fight inflation. You can't win the fight because it's not monetary alone. Textbook says you can, but this one you can't win it alone. So I don't know. It's a bit, okay.
Yes, but the issue is, I don't know. I think somebody said this is, do they really want to fix it? Because all the direction doesn't show they're actually going in the direction of trying to fix something. I think they're just trying to act, not trying to get the results we are expecting them to get. I was speaking with somebody about elections, and he said, what concerns businessman concerns government. I'm like, the government will literally determine how long your car will even last, the kind of school your children will attend, the kind of goods you can buy, and how much you can have in your pocket. And it wasn't long when they did the Naira redesign. So a lot of this population don't even know what you are talking about MPR and how it's affecting them. And they cannot even demand that. And also, they don't even know how to, change their lifestyle or even do anything that actually reflects what the current situation is. I told somebody that day that if I'm doing business, forget what they are saying, my price will be related to dollar rates. It's not about pity. I'm not doing business for charity. You can't have high dollar rates and my goods will not increase. It will definitely increase, because I have to make profits, and that's why I'm there, So that's why my focus personally is about educating the small and medium scale businesses, and I'm doing that, of course, through my own career with ICT.
But I tell you this, right? You hit a point that this lack of information about Nigerian SMEs and entrepreneurs about how what the CBN does, what the government does affects them. And that's why I do what I do. A long while back when I told folks not to sell their dollars, the rationale was very, very easy. It was very easy. The US was increasing rates.
Yeah.
And I posted literally, I said, there is no way on this earth the US dollar would be increasing rates, and the US dollar is rising in the US, and then the same US dollar is falling in Nigeria. It doesn't work. Because what you are saying is that Nigeria is subsidizing the US.
Obviously.
So it doesn't make any sense. You didn't have to go to school to know this, but because folks don't understand the way the currency works, then you had all that back and forth. But we have to understand MPR. If you are an entrepreneur, if you are borrowing money, if you are in business, you have to understand how decisions of the Central Bank of Nigeria drive your growth. Like I've explained today, the interest rate you pay for your house in Edo State is based on the price of beans in Kebbi. There's a direct relationship. If the price of beans in Kebbi goes up, the Central Bank of Nigeria will increase interest rates. If the Central Bank of Nigeria increases interest rates, the price you pay for your interest for your mortgage in Edo will go up. It's linked. It's not a casual linkage, it's a direct linkage. That's why in the US, they follow what the Fed says tooth and nail, right? You follow everything they say because it affects and drives decision. Here, there's a bit of, doesn't bother me, but it does bother you. The US has reduced interest rates. It's going to affect you. In Nigeria, it should be a positive. So I was surprised that Nigeria increased rates when the US was reducing rates. Only UK is keeping rates high. EU has reduced rates. US has reduced rates. Nigeria increased rates. I don't know, but let's talk to Aki. Aki, take us home. We've got about 10 minutes or so. Aki, take us home. Thanks, Dingling. Appreciate that. Aki, what's up? Aki, you still there?
Can I just speak for 1 minute?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so
Can you hear me?
I spoke about the interest rates. Sorry, I spoke about the interest rate, why you need to look at the differential. So if you look at real rate in America, it's still positive because the interest rate is still higher than the inflation rate. If you look at Nigeria, despite the fact that inflation moderated, it's negative.
It's still
so
negative.
And if you look at it, oil production is still picking up. So what Cardoso is looking at, the only incentive he has is to make Naira-denominated investment attractive. The reality is that the industrial economy has not been performing. Let's be honest, even when rates were at... So there was a greater concessions which was a big FPIs on the industrial economy. It looks bad, but the reality is that the industrial economy was not really a top asset, a top priority as far as FX liquidity was a concern. And that was why I was not surprised at the end of the day when Cardoso increased interest by 50 bps. What we should be working on right now is that the Ghanaians have reduced interest rates. The Egyptians are a bit lukewarm about raising rates. So it's expected that Nigeria gains from that. But the problem Nigeria is having is not that FX will not come in. It's the mismanagement of our fact allocation and the consistent increment of liquidity in our black market.
I mean, you have, again, we have exports. Let's, again, say it again. Nigeria has a net positive export position, meaning that Nigeria is exporting more than she is importing. Yet the currency, the Naira, is weakening, it's falling, it's depreciating the market. So it's not aligning. Why? Because if we go by what the CBN is saying, certain actors are buying these dollars and just keeping the dollars. If that dollar was being used in the market, yes, the economy would expand. But when you buy dollar, Aki has dropped off. When you buy dollar and you are just keeping the dollar not to use for anything productive, then Naira will fall. If that dollar was used, given to importers to import machinery, and that machinery is now making the cost of bread to fall because there's productivity gains, then Naira will gain. So the NSA, go after these guys that are taking this money out and are keeping it. Go after them. The same way you went after Binance. Go after whether it's a governor, a local government chairman, make an example. Make an example of a governor. Yes, you can't prosecute him. Charge him. Put the fact there. Put it out there. Let him lose election. Let people know that, because we can't be, it's our country too. Akin, you're back. What's in your mind?
Hello, Carlo. So, Carlo, I want to touch on some things that you've said in the past and link it to what Olumide has said. So, actually, you're right. The point about money supply and inflation, they don't necessarily have to increase the money supply. Doesn't necessarily have to increase the inflation rate. Mm-hmm. If the production of goods and services increases either at the same rate or even at a higher rate, you could even have lower prices by printing money if the money is channeled properly. Mm-hmm. And if it leads to,
I agree,
to production. In China, in China, currently they have a problem of low inflation. Not because the People's Bank of China doesn't print money, but because China is a production machine. It is not just a production machine of low value added. Now, China's strong point is no longer cheap labor. They have the best quality.
Did we lose Aki?
Are not producing. We are not producing as a society. So what tends to happen is you print a lot of money, give it to people, and people go out and buy things. What then happens is that the people that collect your money then place orders abroad. And with an unstable exchange rate, you have a pass-through effect and imported inflation, which they then add the profit margins, add demurrage, add tariffs and everything, and then you have higher prices. In other economies, what you tend to have is when you print that kind of money, it then goes maybe into production of new services, production in the factories and all of that. But we have so hamstrung our industrial sector. Nigeria hasn't really had a policy to boost the industrial sector, the manufacturing economy of this country, probably in decades, maybe since the Gowon era or something. We've not really had like a serious policy about that. Secondly, I want to add to the points about food production that you're talking about. If you look at the CPI basket, or if you look at the things Nigerians spend money on, is essentially food, transport, rent. Now, what drives rent? When you have a system or in a country where we have about 25 million housing unit deficits, it means that in a whole lot of the urban areas of Nigeria, landlords have more strength or more market power than renters, meaning that they can dictate rents all across. And don't forget that rents are also an input for businesses. A business that is doing fintech also has to pay rent. They have to factor it into it. When you go to ShopRite or you go to some of these other retailers and you see things are extremely expensive, know that you are paying rent. Rent is one of the main inputs that is causing all of that. So Nigeria should go. It's just unfortunate that we need to also have a construction agenda added to this. Nobody really talks about the manufacturing sector. We just ignore it. This is almost 15 to 20% of the economy. The construction sector is a big part of our economy too. You have, of course, talked repeatedly about the agricultural sector, and you've made fantastic points. So I don't think I need to add more. Maybe except that we need to do more mechanization, and we should stop seeing agriculture as a quote-unquote job creation machine and more as a food security machine and cheap food security machine, not a situation where we just have lots of production and then we lose a lot of it, or we still are using hoes and cutlasses and the like. So basically, we've not had a proper economic strategy that incorporates the manufacturing sector and the construction sector into how we as a country are looking to improve our economy, develop, and also bring down inflation, long-term inflation in the country. That's really what I have to say.
Well said, Akin. I completely agree. I mean, we got to, again, going back to the topic when we started very, very top, we've got to link this food, agriculture, employment to the economy. Food is already 20% of the economy. More Nigerians are employed as, should we say, in the agricultural sector. So once we can get that right, then we have a baseline. If we can then dovetail it into infrastructure, say, okay, let's then connect the food growing areas by food and rails to the export markets, to the cities. We've built out our infrastructure. Then we can then build a credit system around the earnings of the farmers, the processing of crops that is not tied into imports. So it's a local economy now that is sort of ring-fenced away from the movement of the dollar, of the yen, because we're growing cassava in Abia, we're refining it in Abia, we're eating it in all across Nigeria. So you have that, should we say, linkages across the board. It's employing people in Abia, it's employing people in Yobe, it's employing people in Lagos. With that base, you can then start to talk about your AI and you're going to space. But right now, we're talking AI when we can't even process raw cassava. We are still doing farming with rainfall in Nigeria. So that's the problem I think we're having in the country. We're a bit, like you said, we had the National Development Plan 1, 2, and 3. The last time Nigeria had a plan was the Vision 2020 by 20, right? We've not had any economic plan since then. Today, Nigeria has no economic plan. The ASAP is an intervention plan. It's not an economic plan. Go back to the Gowon Industrial Development Plan 1, 2, and 3. You see where they were talking about building out factories in Lagos, steel plants. All these are all part of a policy. Before independence, the Northern Nigeria had the Northern Nigeria Development Plan, which was implemented. Same with the East, same with the West. Odua was in the Western Plan. You see the industrial areas, Transamadi, These were all industrial plans that have been actualized. Right now, we have no industrial plan. We have no economic plan. I challenge anyone on this space or anybody, Google it. Nigeria has no economic plan. What with the ASAP is an intervention plan to sort out the hunger issues. But what's the plan? We want to have a 1 trillion economy by 10 years from when the president took over. That was last year. How do we get there? What sectors are we going to focus on? What inputs do we need? What investment in work education? What education do we need? Do any of our schools teach Nollywood? Nollywood is a massive part of the economy. Is any school teaching film and studios that will tie in that economy to the education part of the economy? Is anyone doing that? So we have to be planned. If you're not planned, then you don't really achieve what you want to achieve. You know, if Israel can grow food in a desert, if Netherlands can grow food in a waterlogged lagoon, we can do the same. Niger State is trying, but we can do the same. You know, so I don't know. It's like every week we talk, but nothing really gets done. But
sorry, Carlo, I also want to ask something quick on the issue of the interest rate. Everyone wonders why Nigerian businesses don't plan for the future or don't plan long term. It is largely because we are a country where if you plan in the long term, one, there are the policy somersaults that happen here and there. Then you also have the issue of if you go to the banks to borrow, they basically charge you punitive interest rate and everything. So you can't, as a business person, generally want to go into long-term businesses, aka things like what Innoson is doing. Innoson is, I think, a national hero, but work that he's doing. So things that have to do with manufacturing, things that have to do with construction, because it's extremely risky if you are getting your money from the banks and you're not sourcing it at 0% from some God knows who.
Yeah, you can't. You're right. You just can't. Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, the Nord guy was here as well. And I remember him saying this. He needs how much $1,000 to buy a press. If he gets that press, his cost of his cars fall. Why can't the government give him money to buy that press? Why? But we can buy decorations for the first lady. You know, I wrote a long time ago about Samsung, how Samsung started and how the military dictator then called the Samsung guy and said, people want ships, go and build ships. And in 20 years, South Korea became a world leader in shipbuilding. It's not rocket science. So, you know, sometimes you just need a focused president, a well-trained and educated workforce, and just take no excuses. Take no excuses and things happen. That's really what you need sometimes. Hey guys, it's been an interesting and informative session once again with you guys. We've been here for 2 hours and I appreciate everyone. Everyone has spoken. Thank you all. We've tried to highlight the CBN's, decision on increasing interest rates. You can tell that we are not too happy. We understand why the CBN increased interest rates. Inflation is still high in Nigeria, so they took interest rates up to moderate and to keep, monetary expansion in check. We did say that would cause the growth side of the equation to fall off because then you can't grow in Nigeria at 27% MPR. It's nearly impossible. The CBN is signaling that it's also looking at the foreign investors. It wants to also offer them a real rate of return, hence it's increasing interest rates. But we noticed the frustration of the CBN governor. He's saying that, listen, I'm doing my work and you guys are just taking FARC and buying dollars. You are importing this inflation and you're exacerbating the inflation. So that's the key concern there. I'm hearing rumors of a cabinet reshuffle. I hope the president this time gets it right. Many people are in this cabinet that are there, like someone has said earlier, because they helped the president to win the election. The president has got about 3 more years, or should we say 2 more years. 1 year is going to be election year. He's got to work. Nothing is guaranteed. The president should not assume that he's going to win a re-election. He should not also assume that they will quote unquote BVAS or no BVAS will do the magic. He's got to work. Nigerians want a winner. If the president wins, Nigerians will support him. It's that simple. It's really that simple. All this tribal thing will go away if the president is delivering results. I've seen Coca-Cola, 1 billion. I've seen ExxonMobil, 10 billion. We need more of that. More needs to come. But if every day we're seeing people are leaving Nigeria, the dollar is going to 2,000, then people will not support him. A guy posted on Twitter the other day, hunger has no tribal marks. Very profound. Hunger has no travel marks. So we must remember it's our country too, and we must make it work. We want to succeed. If the president succeeds, we succeed. That's basically it. On that note, guys, thanks so much for listening in. I'll see you guys here again next week. Remember, my name is Kalu Aja, and we're here every weekend talking about the money, the economy, and the finance, using Nigeria as our base case. And I'll see you guys again next week if you guys allow me. You guys have a good one. Enjoy your week and keep it simple and stay safe. On that note, thank you guys and bye.